Today's review is sponsored by the new hit sport sweeping the nation, granny tossing. A sport the whole family can enjoy. Except Granny.
Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
The Candy Snatchers.
Little darling, now you got one chance. Let's hear it. Daddy!
In this little-known gem from 1973, we open with young Candy walking home from Catholic school. Because of course she goes to Catholic school. Things instantly take a bad turn when she's kidnapped by three small-time criminals wearing Groucho Marx glasses. I was debating on wearing Groucho glasses for this review, but I pretty much already have that going for me, so it would just look like me wearing glasses. Anyway, this group of thugs snatch Candy and take her to this remote location where they bury her alive, with a pipe sticking out of her coffin so she can breathe.
When I say three. 1, 2, 3.
These hooligans then attempt to extort a large ransom from Candy's father, who's the owner of a prominent jewelry store. It's such a simple crime. Everything's been going perfectly, until Candy's father does not show up to drop off the money. And with that, a simple kidnapping spirals out of control as the movie goes on. Meanwhile, Candy's only hope for survival is a mute, mentally challenged little boy who knows where she's buried. The Candy Snatchers was directed by Guerdon Trueblood. He has the coolest last name ever. This was the only theatrical movie he ever directed. He mostly did writing for TV and a few creature features. This was the guy who wrote the story for Jaws 3D. You can judge him for that if you want to. I actually love Jaws 3D. It's such a bad movie, but that's why I love it. It's awful in an entertaining way. Here's a fun fact. Guerdon Trueblood was the grandson of General Billy Mitchell, who was the founding father of the U.S. Air Force. Going back to Candy Snatchers, this is a solid piece of exploitation cinema. I try to make it clear that I'm a fan of horror movies and exploitation movies. Yes, a lot of horror movies are exploitation movies, but not all exploitation movies are horror movies. You have a lot of non-horror subgenres when it comes to exploitation. Kung fu flicks, women in prison movies, blaxploitation movies. The Candy Snatchers is a crime thriller. To be more specific, a kidnap thriller.
Oh my God. Oh my God, no!
The main appeal for me is that it's not like most kidnapping thrillers. If anything, I would say this is one of the most unique movies in that particular subgenre. When it comes to that genre, the formula is pretty basic. A group of criminals kidnap somebody, send a ransom to their loved ones, and then the family or a detective tries to get that person back. There are variations, of course, and you typically do get twists and turns throughout the story, but it's usually that basic premise. Person A is kidnapped, and person B tries to get them back. But in the case of Candy Snatchers, it goes in a completely different direction. It subverts your expectations so much that you have no idea where the movie is going.
Oh, come on, Charlie. You gonna give it to us or not?
What's it worth to you?
$10.
$10. At 10 o'clock, I sold a finger for 35.
Candy Snatchers came out 1 year after The Last House on the Left, and it has that same dirty feel. I could be wrong about this, but I do think that Last House on the Left was the catalyst for a lot of movies in the 70s. Once that movie came out, other movies tried to capture that same dirty, gritty feeling. Candy Snatchers never gets as graphic as Last House on the Left, but it does get about as gritty and dark. One of the main complaints about Last House on the Left is the humor mixed into the story. Some people say it ruins the mood. Candy Snatchers also has dark humor mixed in the story, but it does a much better job at balancing it out. It never takes away that gritty feeling. This movie does what many of my favorite exploitation films do. When the movie starts, it has that cheese factor. You think you're in for something so bad it's good. At first, you're laughing at the movie.
Money is the root of all happiness.
But as the story goes along, you stop laughing, and the next thing you know, you're hooked. And you realize you actually care about what happens.
You're gonna kill me.
No.
Oh my God. I know it. Even if you don't.
I love when Grindhouse movies do that. The characters all work great in this movie. First, of course, there's Candy. She's not really the main character, but they do a good job at making her somebody you want to protect.
What are you doing?
We're putting her back in the hole.
No!
Please don't put me back in the hole!
Shut up!
You don't know what it's like!
You want to see her get out of this situation, and you are terrified for her. The movie is so unpredictable that you think, she could die by the end of this. The kidnappers, Jesse, Eddie, and Alan, are fantastic villains. I admit that usually when it comes to movies, I don't like when my main characters are assholes, but it works when you're following the villains. You love to hate these people, but the movie tricks you at times into feeling sympathy for them, and then they do something terrible, and you immediately turn on them. The movie constantly pulls you back and forth this way.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? I'm gonna cut her ear off.
This is best shown with the character of Eddie. You are constantly pulled back and forth between liking Eddie and hating Eddie. Even though they've kidnapped Candy, he's a tad protective of her. He's always consoling her, trying to tell her everything's going to be okay. In a way, he's protecting her from the other two.
Outside.
But the next thing you know, he rapes somebody. The movie does a good job at raising your hopes and then smashing them. Not in a way so that everything feels hopeless, just enough to keep you on edge. Then there's the little boy Sean. Putting a kid in a movie, especially an old exploitation movie, can be a risk. If not done right, the character can be annoying. I thought Sean was going to irritate the piss out of me throughout this movie, but I ended up caring about him just as much as I cared about Candy.
Can you do it?
He's mute, and he's clearly mentally disabled. You would think that he could just get his parents and lead them to Candy. The problem is, his parents are terrible people. They don't live the life they think they deserve, and they think it's Sean's fault because he was born with these disabilities. They don't treat him well.
I told you to go to bed, and you didn't. You are never, ever going to disobey me again.
But Sean is the only one who knows where Candy is, and he has no one to turn to for help. We go back and forth between Candy, her kidnappers, and little Sean. It puts you on edge because you don't know what's going to happen. This leads to a fantastic climax, and an ending that you will not forget for a long time. But enough of this praise, let's get to the Grindhouse rankings. We've got a body count of about 6. The kills mostly consist of gunshots and stabbings. but this is not a horror movie, so that doesn't really matter. The villains are great. The movie does a good job at tricking you into being on their side, but then reminds you that they're horrible people. We care about Candy and Sean, so we have characters that we can attach to, so we can be on edge. The suspense is almost unbearable, and it has a great climax, which leads to a great ending. This is a solid 4.7 out of 5. If you're in the mood for a gritty Grindhouse movie, this is definitely worth your time. As always, I want to thank you all for watching and supporting my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you like what I do here, or give it a thumbs down if you don't like what I do here. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your favorite kidnapping movie. This is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die. Who wants to snatch some candy?